Well, friends, we'd like to just introduce our session today and introduce ourselves firstly. This topic is of such crucial importance to our students and to our communities, and I might go as far as to say to the world around us, how we support the social and emotional health and well-being of this community and this group of young, wonderful people.
As Nick said, I wanted to reiterate and echo just how excited and joyous I am to be here with this community this morning of folks that care so deeply about their students, their children's social and emotional learning, to take the time out to come and be with us. So thank you so much for coming this morning.
So we want to make sure we're all on the same page. I know that social emotional learning at this school is not new, but sometimes a little recap of the definition, what we are talking about and what we're not talking about is really important. So we'll touch on that briefly. We also want to touch on a little bit of the research. The social emotional learning research world has come so far in the last few years. And there's some really interesting, exciting things that we can share with you and direct you for more if you want to geek out on it any further. But the main purpose of our time here today is to look at 3 particular tools that are evidence-based, that are things parents have told us over the years that they have found really helpful to take home to support their child's social and emotional development. So it'll be practical today, hopefully, and please, there'll be time for questions at the end, but if you have a question as we're going through, please just ask straight away as well. Who is IFSEL? Very, very quickly, we are a small organization with a big heart. We are all teachers and educators by background, and we started this work back in 2009 when the group of founders worked at a school in California called the Nueva School. We were the social emotional learning specialists at the school, and we were being visited by schools all over the world to come and see what we were doing in our classroom. The school supported us to start a summer training, and in 2009 we had 60 teachers come from around the US, mostly, to come and learn what we were doing. We had no idea it would turn into anything bigger than that. But here we are, 13-ish years later, and we now have the huge honor of working with a large number of schools. I share this because I am really proud of it, but that's not the reason. I share that because ISKL is part of a really global movement to put social emotional learning at the core of what it means to have an education for young people today. Many schools up there internationally and across the US have really committed a huge amount of their resources and efforts to making this a priority. And it's a relief and a huge joy to be able to be part of it. Here's our little team based around the world, the Philippines, China, Hong Kong, the UK, and then all over the US as well. Let's dig into these 3 tools. We would like to make sure today feels hopefully really practical for you and something you can do or try at home with your young people. And we really hope today is an opportunity to connect with other parents and to connect with yourself as a parent or caregiver, because we know that this work really starts with us. And part of this hope in the session today is that we can really be looking after our parent community just the same way we're looking after our student community. How do we know and how do we support our kids to understand their feelings and to know what to do with those feelings when they emerge? It's kind of the foundation of SEL. And the question really is for us right now, as we think about doing this for ourselves, is how are you feeling right now in this room on this Wednesday morning? When you think about that emotional self-awareness, how are you feeling in your mind? How are you feeling in your body or in your spirit, your soul, however you like to think about that part of yourself? So we'd like to start with us, and then we'll talk about your kids. So for us as parents right now, how are you feeling? Take a moment for yourselves just to think about how you are. Because often we know when we ask this question of our kids, right? What's the answer we get? Fine, I'm okay. Yeah? Feels very familiar. So how do we get beyond fine? How do we get beyond fine to really dig into that self-awareness, emotional awareness that we want for our kids? Friends, one of the things that when we're thinking of how we might support the social and emotional development of our kids, particularly around kind of naming emotions, is to think about how we see emotions ourselves, our own sort of childhood, how we grew up, what messages we received about emotions in our own lived experience. Because maybe for us, the way we were told to think about emotions is very different now to how we might want to talk to our children about feelings. So a couple of points up here that often we have found can be helpful. All feelings are normal. There's no such thing as a bad feeling. There might be hard feelings, there might be positive feelings, there might be difficult feelings, but they are all normal, they are all valid. It's what we do with them that matters. And part of the biggest work of elementary SEL and middle school is really helping kids find that sense of agency, that they get to choose how to respond to the feelings they experience. So for us as parents to kind of repeat that back to kids and say, hey, I can see you're feeling really frustrated now. You get to choose how you respond to that frustration. Do you want to let it drive your action, or do you want to think about it a different way? And with that sense of self-compassion, let's take that emotional awareness piece again back to ourselves. What do you do when you're, as a parent, when you feel your emotions rise? When you feel your energy coming up, when you feel frustration or worry or concern for your kids? What do you do for yourself when those emotions rise? With kids, we talk about it as a cool-off strategy. What do you do to cool off when you feel those emotions rising up as a parent? The anthropologist Angelis Arian talks about a big red button. She says every parent has a big red button. It's somewhere on you. You know the things that are going to make your emotions rise. You know the things your kids do that make you go, "Argh," or some sense of some big feeling that comes up. And part of our job as parents to be really thoughtful in this work is to figure out what your button is and how to unwire it or dewire it.
We wanted to share now a little bit of the research behind why this is important. So you may feel intuitively why this is important for yourself and for your children, but there's actually data, science, and all sorts of research and statistics that supports this as well, not just for the personal, as well as for the academic, as well as for business. But the first thing we wanted to mention is that SEL is connected to, as we said earlier, all learning is social and emotional, but it's also really connected to a whole bunch of different disciplines, and there are just some of them up here. So when we look to neuroscience, there's research going on around SEL. When we think about criminal justice, when we think about employment and skills, economics, psychology, and public health, in each of these fields, there are entire divisions and research going on. So this might be one way for you into this conversation as you think about these various factors for your own personal life, but as well as for that of your child. What that can look like, though, if we're looking and drilling down really, really deeply into some of the research, is first there are some consensus statements that we wanted to share. We've done a little bit of the research for you. Oop, go back. It's a little delayed. We've done the research for you and summarized these consensus statements. If you like to read research, we certainly recommend for you to Google this, find it, download a copy, keep it by your bedside table, read it at night. It's not very light reading, but you do you. But our summary of this is the following, that from the Aspen Institute, they found social, emotional, and academic development matters. Right? I think that's something we can all agree on. We want our students to academically excel, and at the same time, we want them to excel as humans, and that's what the social emotional piece is. That social emotional skills are malleable, and I love that. That is to say that as we grow, we can develop those skills at any age. Right? Just like we can learn a new skill, we can learn new social and emotional skills. Back to that definition that we have, it's a dynamic, lifelong process. Regardless of where and when your student, your child enters this, they can continue to develop those skills. It's not like it's too late, which is beautiful. Schools, where we are right now, of course, play a central role in their development. When the students aren't co-regulating with you at home, they have their peers, they have their educators, their coaches, the administrators, their counselors at the school to help them do that as well in various degrees. So schools play a central role. And you may have felt that a little bit, perhaps a lot, during the pandemic, when all of a sudden the shift went from the school playing a large part of that to perhaps now your home was the majority of the time when that was happening. And finally, focusing on social and emotional development is worth it, which is really broad and vague. So we brought a few more statistics to bear here. The first one comes to us from Durlak et al. In 2011. And they found that compared to controls, so students without, SEL participants demonstrated improved academics performance reflected in an 11 percentile point gain in achievement. So purely from a school-focused, achievement-focused stance, SEL programs realized an entire grade level improvement for students that were really authentically involved in that process. Which to me, I'm like, I can't think of any other thing out there that results in an entire grade level improvement, which is, I think, pretty powerful. Further, this is actually my favorite one. They found that, this is Taylor et al. In 2017, a follow-up from 6-month to 18-year post-interventions, participants fared significantly better than controls in social and emotional skills, attitudes, and indicators of well-being. That makes sense, but here's the kicker. The benefits were similar regardless of students' race, socioeconomic background, or school location. Meaning that these SEL programs don't only work for students in the United States that go to a particular kind of school that have a particular skin color. These same skills are working globally for the students that are here at this school now, as well as the students, that's not a word, students halfway around the world. I think that's pretty powerful.
So we'd love to just wrap up with firstly expressing our gratitude to all of you and to ISKL for hosting this session. We know that parenting is a really hard but also a joyful job, and just to know that what you're doing is great and keep going. The resource guide is up there. Please make sure that QR code works. We'll also give it as a document that the school can email out to everyone. And if you need to be in touch or you have questions, Joe and I'll be up here for a little bit, and our email addresses are also on that packet at the very end. In the packet as well, there are a whole load of books, books that we have read as parents and also as educators that we like the look of. This list is in that packet, so feel free to take a photo, but the bibliography is also there. And I think that just leaves us to say a big thank you. There's our contact information, and we wish you all a wonderful rest of this semester, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.